All right, guys, happy Tuesday. Well, at least I'm happy. People on the internet are not happy. They never seem to be happy. Right now, we have two great internet debates that are waging. First and foremost, I'm sure you have seen this, but was the Trump administration correct in deporting a student Palestinian activist from Columbia University? Did you agree with that? Are you following the story? I'm very interested to hear your guys' perspectives. Also, should we now begin feeling bad for Blake Lively because she appeared at her Simple Favor 2 premiere, and people are noting that she seems increasingly uncomfortable and anxious, and maybe it really is just a lot for her to deal with. So we should discuss that. Should we be more compassionate toward Blake Lively? Let's jump right into this. Welcome back to Candace. I already know that I'm going to upset a lot of people on this podcast. It's this thing that I do. I just try to be ideologically consistent. And sometimes that means that you're defending people on the left. Sometimes it means you're defending people on the right. And the people in the middle are always like, well, why don't we just defend ideas? Before we get into the meat and potatoes of today, which is the pro-Palestinian student protester that is being deported by Trump's DOJ, I very quickly want to at first give you my opinion on Blake Lively's appearance at the Simple Favor 2 premiere, South by Southwest premiere. There she is alongside Anna Kendrick. And I should say first and foremost, regarding Anna Kendrick, we already knew that she was somewhat upset leading up to this premiere for obvious reasons. I mean, you imagine you work your butt off, you're in this movie, you're fighting with Blake Lively about who should be more prominently featured on all of the materials and the advertisements, because I guess that's a thing, like where you're featured on the movie poster. And Blake Lively wants to be prominently featured, and then she gets herself into this huge situation worldwide. She is sort of despised alongside her husband. And now you've got to recognize that this movie's probably not going to do so well because people are just not going to watch a movie with Blake Lively in it. And the rumors were that she felt that Blake Lively didn't do anything to dispel that. She didn't come out and make a statement. She didn't come out, with her heart in her hand or say anything. She just kind of allowed this movie to be like an innocent bystander to everything that went on with It Ends With Us. It Ends With Us, pardon. So leading up to this red carpet, all eyes were kind of on Blake. People were wondering if she was going to bring Ryan. I said, definitely not. That's not going to happen. Obviously, she's adjusting and she's realizing what a bad decision SNL was. People don't like Ryan Reynolds, especially. So she did show up alone. And when Anna Kendrick was asked about Blake Lively on the red carpet, she was a bit pithy, and I would say maybe trying to be funny, but definitely made a statement when she was asked about working with Blake. Take a listen.
Anna, what does it mean to be working with Blake again?
Oh, talking about you.
Just, sort of a thing. And there were tons of rumors that, by the way, on the first movie, they didn't get along fantastically. Obviously, they got along enough for them to do the second movie. But you can sense that she's a little bit annoyed, and she knows that a lot of questions are going to be coming her way about Blake Lively. And specifically, when she was asked directly by a reporter about everything that was going on, she definitely gave a very cutthroat answer. Here's what she had to say.
Yeah, so now the other thing I want to ask you, how do you feel like how does it feel like the movie's being impacted kind of by everything happening around going on in the world?
Why, what happened? I did ayahuasca and the last year of my life is just gone, but I've heard the movie's amazing.
Wait, thank you.
So I thought it was really interesting, and I'm not sure if anybody has pointed this out yet, that she chose to say ayahuasca and that she couldn't remember anything as her reason as to why she can't respond to this. And I was wondering whether or not that was potentially a nod to the now infamous skit where Ryan Reynolds directed the promo of It Ends With Us, brought his mother, and had Brandon Sklenar there. And Brandon Sklenar, I guess, was supposed to be the Justin Baldoni, and said that he had taken a lot of ayahuasca. That just kept happening throughout the skit, and we weren't sure why they were focusing on ayahuasca. It was quite strange. Take a listen, just jogging your memory here.
My heart is beating like crazy right now. This reminds me of when I went on that meth journey, confront my inner child.
And I was on a meth journey. I think you mean like ayahuasca, like South American plant known for its medicinal benefits. Definitely not meth. You should not be doing a meth journey.
I've been on a meth journey for about 6 months now.
I mean, I'm not a doctor, but you're probably gonna die.
I feel well.
You don't look well.
I was expecting not to like him.
Oh, yeah.
But he is so nice.
The nicest guy.
So
Ever since you're
funny,
nice, but
charming,
he's-
kind.
Yeah.
What a
Oh my
wonderful
God.
guy.
What is ayahuasca?
So I was wondering if she said that on purpose. We will obviously never know the answer to that. But what we do know is that there has definitively been a noticeable transition in Blake Lively's public demeanor, right? We're kind of used to seeing, and pardon my language here, but we're very used to seeing like a bitchy Blake, right? She's very unkind to reporters. And genuinely, I think that there's just a lack of a better word there. She seems to hate the press junkets over the years. She barely seems to enjoy her fans. She kind of thinks that she's above her fans, thinks she's above the press, and is just always rude, right? But throughout these last two public appearances, since everything has kind of been falling apart for her and Ryan, she does seem, and I will agree, admittedly very uncomfortable. And I said that immediately when she was on the red carpet with Ryan. He didn't, obviously, because he is, I think, just a narcissist to his core. But, you know, they chose to walk the red carpet and he was kind of pointing at her and wanting the cameras to capture him and her. And then he notoriously, now we know, wrote another line into that script to sort of mock the circumstances of everything that was going on. But when you zoomed in on her face in that moment and you saw Kevin Costner kind of looking down in that SNL moment, she doesn't look comfortable. She doesn't. She looks anxious. She looks like she doesn't really want to be out in public when she knows that the public does not like her. And we saw this similarly at the event for South by Southwest. Some people are noticing that she's rambling when she's speaking on stage to the point of almost incoherency, rambling to deal with her angst, right? And I'll just give you a sample of that. Take a listen.
What happens in the third one? No, I'm joking. Capri and Rome, honestly. So Paul, we really wanted to make this second movie, and I was like, Paul, he wanted to shoot in Capri, and I was like, that sounds amazing, but it's very expensive, and let's just, shoot in Connecticut. That's where the first one took place. I didn't understand why it needed to be Capri, and now I want to live there. I love it so much. They serve you ice cream and lemons, and it's just magical. And they sell hats. That crazy, beautiful hat was just a hat in a store. Like, humans buy that.
And I'll also add to that, she's definitely rambling and you can sense she's uncomfortable and a lot of hand movements. But I'll also add that even when you see her walking the red carpet, she's suddenly very nice to fans. It's a totally different Blake Lively. And she just seems so grateful for every fan that's coming up to her and asking for a picture and like a hug. We even saw that on the red carpet with SNL. I think it was, I can't think of the woman's last name, Amy. One of my producers will say it in my ear, but when they were speaking and they were hugging and they just sort of looked at each other, and she just seems so much more compassionate now, right? Where you can see that she's had some sort of an internal breakdown. And I noticed that following that ramble session, which was posted on Instagram over and over again, some of the comments in response to it were quite sympathetic to Blake, right? They said that you can really feel her anxiety through the screen. One Instagram user was actually even empathetic to the matter and saying that they similarly ramble when they are on their anxiety meds. And I would not be shocked at all, by the way, if Blake during this moment was taking anxiety meds. I believe truly it is not an act to suggest that Blake Lively is anxious at this moment in time with so much on the line and everything that she feels that she's worked for essentially being wiped out with one case. So the question that people are asking is, should we be the better person? Should we take the Justin Baldoni approach? Should we take a look at this situation, assess the monster that lived inside of her, and show her some compassion, especially because many of us agree that Ryan Reynolds was the leader in this. I believe that. I believe Ryan Reynolds was the leader and is the leader in everything that she does. So should we be compassionate? And the answer is no. My friends, we obviously should not be compassionate. That's not how this works. Okay. When you get caught doing something that is purely evil, the task is not on the people who caught you doing that thing to extend forgiveness to you when you have not asked for forgiveness. That is the important part here, okay? Something that I actually learned from my father-in-law, something my husband always says. When people say, do you forgive that person? The question is, have they asked for forgiveness? And Blake Lively has not. She has not said sorry. She has not even said sorry to the court. She has not dropped the lawsuit. She has not made a statement. She has not apologized to anyone for attempting to execute an act of perfect evil. And she would have gotten away with it. Think of Scooby-Doo. I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids. We are the meddling kids. This was meant to be an act of evil against a harmless person. She sensed his weakness and she went for it. And yes, I too would be anxious and uncomfortable if the world finally saw me for exactly what I was, right? If I had perfectly curated this idea of me caring about various causes and caring about people, and in reality, I get caught in my own text messages as being a very mean girl who will even use A-list power and the threat of dragons to take somebody down who just wanted to bring forth a movie that they were passionate about, a book that they were passionate about, taking a book and turning it into a movie because he wanted to tell a story about domestic violence. Okay, so I just want to remind you guys that whenever and if ever you begin to feel an iota of sadness for Blake Lively, I want you to remember all of the things that she did to Justin Baldoni. I want you to revisit the website that Brian Friedman put up. And I want you to read her text messages and how horrific they were, how quickly her and Ryan decided to use the threat of Taylor Swift to take down Justin Baldoni and make him feel like he was powerless in the world of Hollywood. I want you to remember their agents. Baldoni, Baloney, Ari Emanuel, okay, still bullying him after lawsuits have been filed because they view themselves to be that powerful, okay? We're the giants here, and there's nothing that Justin can do about it. And I will promise you that when you recapture that in your own imagination, recapture how Justin Baldoni and his family must have felt realizing that if it wasn't for us meddling kids, okay, if it wasn't for us meddling kids, he would have effectively been branded as a sexual pervert. That would have been the story of Justin Baldoni. We would have been an actor who did a movie, who then moved to direct a movie, and then it was discovered, thanks to the wonderful feminist that Blake Lively is and her wonderful feminist friends who march in songs to take down Katy Perry. Thanks to her, we recognize that actually he was a sexual pervert who both thought she was ugly, but also couldn't look away from her and irresistibly needed to stare at her, him and Justin Heath, when she was breastfeeding, because they're just so into those sorts of things. Who was into a category of porn that nobody has ever heard of, which is a woman giving birth. Realize that they sat down, they made threats in an effort to take over his movie. And when they didn't get what they wanted, they were willing to brand him as a sexual predator via one of the most powerful news organizations in the world, the New York Times. And they were able to do that because of their connections. So, no, the answer to people that are wondering in the comments if you should feel bad because she looks anxious, the answer is no, you shouldn't feel bad, and she should be anxious, okay? After a person goes on a murder spree, to give you an example, and if they're home and they're dumping their clothes and getting rid of all the evidence, and then they hear sirens outside, and they start to feel anxious, we don't go, oh my gosh, I feel so, he's going through a moment of anxiety, recognizing that he might really get caught, that he really might actually have to serve a sentence for this horrific act that he committed. No, we keep marching until she gives us the mea culpa and she recognizes and thinks about the anxiety that his wife must have gone through, recognizing that it was a plausibility that her kids could grow up and believe that their father was a monster, okay? Maybe think about how Justin Baldoni felt when he was in that basement at his own movie premiere. And they were laughing and dancing upstairs, thinking that they had almost done it, that it was almost completed, and that they had taken over his movie. And by the way, if you were on the fence about how involved Blake Lively was, I certainly was at moments going, was this just being driven by Ryan? Was she even on the set when he did these Deadpool things? Was she even aware of the lines that he was writing, since she played Lady Deadpool, but she only did the voiceover and she wasn't actually on set? Did she know that he was going to over-murder him and do all of these horrific, toxic things? Well, we got our answer when somebody on TikTok was able to find that present at that shoot that we just showed you, where he brought his mom in to mock Justin Baldoni and to make fun of him and his background and his family and ayahuasca. Blake Lively was present when that was shot. Here is a backstage at the It Ends With Us Ryan Reynolds promo shoot.
I say, yeah, one.
Good. 1, 2, I stopped taking my blood. Yeah.
It says the one and only Blake Smollett. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast, it is her laughing and speaking. It looks like she's directing almost Ryan's mother to say lines. And we know that she was saying lines about Blake, that Brennan was meant to be Justin Baldoni. And this was really, truly just high school bullying done to the Hollywood extreme. So I don't forgive it. I will not forget it. But when she comes down and asks for an apology, then we can revisit that question. Okay, first I want to tell you guys about Preborn before we get into the meat and potatoes of today. What do Andrea Bocelli, Steph Curry, Justin Bieber, and Tim Tebow all have in common? Well, all of their mothers were encouraged to end their pregnancies. That's the truth. When a woman faces an unplanned pregnancy, she's often pressured to end her child's life. She wants to make the right choice, but society and those around her are telling her that the baby, it's not a life. That's where the Ministry of Preborn steps in. Preborn and their network of clinics offer compassionate, loving care to mothers and the support that they need to help them choose life, including a free ultrasound. Because once a mother hears her child's heartbeat, she is twice as likely to choose life. If you consider yourself pro-life, it's time to join forces with Preborn. Together, we can empower women to choose life. Empowering the truth of motherhood transforms families and futures. One ultrasound is just $28, and $140 will help to rescue 5 babies. When you donate monthly, you'll receive stories and pictures of the lives that you helped to save. To donate securely, you just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby. Or you can donate securely at preborn.com/Candace. Again, that's preborn.com/Candace. Okay, now it's time for me to get into some trouble. Okay, I'm old, by the way, 35 years old. I'm so old that I remember when conservatives were against the weaponization of the Department of Justice. I remember there was this event called January 6th and the aftermath of it. I remember the media, which is so good at brainwashing us, repeatedly showing videos of people breaking through barriers. And what was happening outside of this media depiction was this sweeping justification for the harassment of Americans who were simply there that day, many of whom never entered the Capitol building. They literally just listened to Trump speak and went home. Why do I know this? Because I had friends from my hometown who only attended President Trump's speech and then they went home. And then the FBI arrived at their door to question them about why on earth they went to the rally at all. Okay, that is the reality of circumstances. And I know people that are now watching my series and seeing me do all of these investigative things, you are starting to re-examine your relationship with the media. It's amazing what can happen in moments of confusion, what you'll allow to happen in moments of confusion when a story is presented to you. The message that they received when the FBI showed up at their door, okay, literally kids that I went to elementary school with, is essentially they were being threatened for political reasons. And many people allowed that to happen because the media convinced them through the repetition of videos and words like domestic terrorism. It's terrorism. It's a terroristic threat. The overuse of the word terrorism has been used to propagandize people into believing that if they don't acquiesce to whatever the government wants, well, your nation is going to somehow be harmed because these are terroristic threats. Hello, 9/11. Right? Why do we all have to get naked at the airport? Because after an event like 9/11, there was so much confusion. We were told the Middle East, we don't even know how we got into war, but it was like, take your belts and shoes off at the airport or you're all going to die. And we were like, okay, sure. That seems like a fair trade-off. And now we look back and we go, goodness, when we're emotional and we're fired up about stuff or we hear certain trigger words, we allow a lot of over-governance. I'm also so old, okay, that I remember 2 weeks ago on this podcast when I showed a tremendous clip of Vice President J.D. Vance. He went over to Europe and he rightfully told the leaders, European leaders, that they had become what they hated. Remember the Munich Security Conference? He was saying, you guys are sending police officers to the doors of your own citizens for wrongthink, because rather than try to understand the ideas and see which way the wind is blowing in your countries, you're telling them it's just not allowed. Who are you? How can you purport to be people that defend freedom when actually you're trying to prosecute it? And he was right, and I applauded that. And I'm getting so old, you guys, that I remember BLM protests on campus. Who was there? Who was alive? Am I the only dinosaur here? And some of them grew extremely violent. Not all of them, but some of them definitely grew extremely violent all across cities. I gave speeches on college campuses during that time, and I remember having students that were blocking and barricading doors, blaring music. I was traveling with Charlie Kirk. They were fighting police officers. I got chased down by Antifa in a diner in Philadelphia with Charlie Kirk. You can still find that clip. Totally insane stuff. People that were masked, and it wasn't okay. So I have to tell you that as someone who personally survived the Antifa and the BLM riots, I was very understanding when Trump said that he was going to be cracking down on illegal protests. Operative word being illegal. And he said this on March 4th when he posted this to Truth Social. He wrote, "All federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled, depending on the crime, arrested, no masks. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Cool. I said, okay, that actually works for me. Then we found out via a tweet yesterday that he had arrested a person named Mahmoud Khalil, okay? And I'll just read you the Truth Social tweet. I don't know if they call them tweets on Truth Social, but he wrote, "Following my previously signed executive orders, ICE proudly apprehended and detained Mahmoud Khalil, a radical foreign pro-Hamas student on the campus of Columbia University. This is the first arrest of many to come. We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it. Many are not students. They are paid agitators. We will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again. If you support terrorism, including the slaughtering of innocent men, women, and children, your presence is contrary to our national and foreign policy interests, and you are not welcome here. We expect every one of America's colleges and universities to comply. Thank you." Okay. Then the White House blared this out across their social media pages, writing on top of a photo of this student activist, Shalom Mahmoud. And they wrote, "ICE proudly apprehended and detained Mahmoud Khalid." So to be clear, this wasn't done quietly. This was done loudly. They called him a pro-Hamas student. And obviously, people are then going to look into this person because this is an example of the policy. You said illegal protesting. So I thought, okay, this is going to be pretty simple. I abstained yesterday from all the chatter about it because I just knew in my gut that this person had to have been arrested for doing something that was illegal. Engaging in an illegal protest. He must have been arrested on a campus, and therefore, because he was on a student visa, he had to leave, and I was okay with that. But something else was presented to the public, okay? Here are the facts. Yes, he is a Palestinian activist. His name is Mahmoud Khalil. He was, in fact, detained by ICE over Columbia University protests. He had completed work on his master's degree from Columbia University in December. But he is a legal resident of the United States, okay? He is a green card holder. That is very different from somebody who is here on a student visa, okay? That means you essentially have all of the rights that are afforded to you. You can't vote, but you can have legal green card residency for a very long time. So he was arrested and detained by federal agents after his lawyer said that his green card was revoked by the Trump administration, despite the fact that he hadn't been arrested for engaging in illegal protests. So that made me go, okay, wait, what's this? What's going on? His attorney, a woman named Amy Greer, said that Khalil's wife, who is in fact an American citizen, was also present during his arrest, and she's 8 months pregnant. She's 8 months pregnant. She finds out her green card holding legal permanent resident husband is about to be kicked out of the country, and he hasn't been arrested yet. So I'm going, there must be something here that we're missing, okay? Clearly, I got to kind of get through all of the fodder on social media because, you're going to get, he was a Hamas supporter. I've been called a Hamas supporter for pointing out that I don't like dead children that are Palestinian. Like, truly, survived my last year, everything that I was called. That's why I don't react when I hear these names. I actually look for the truth. I look for the source. I want to hear what he said, and I want to see what he did. I no longer believe in smears and libels and name calling, ad hominem attacks. Just show me the video of what this individual did, what he said that showed that he was supporting a terroristic group overseas, and you will have me committed to your beliefs. But 24 hours later, we couldn't find this. We could not find this. Nobody was able to present anything other than ad hominem attacks, okay? We looked into it a little bit further in an interview with CNN last spring. Khalil said that he was born a Palestinian refugee in Syria. Okay, so he is Palestinian. That's why he obviously is going to have some feelings about what's happening to Palestinians, the innocent Palestinians, okay, people who think that innocent children and women being bombed is wrong are not necessarily Hamas supporters. We're conflating, okay? We are conflating and we're doing it because it's disingenuous. Then we learned that his family is from Tiberias, an Israeli city that was once known for its mixed Jewish and Arab population. He grew up in Syria. He earned his bachelor's degree in computer science from Lebanese American University. That's at least according to his LinkedIn profile. And then in 2023, he began studying to earn his master's in public administration at Columbia's School of International and Public Affairs. After October 7th, there was a coalition of students that established encampments at Columbia University. They held rallies, they staged teach-ins, but the movement, of course, was also being tainted by people who just hated Jews, which, by the way, on CNN, Khalil himself disavowed. He said, quote, "There is, of course, no place for anti-Semitism. What we are witnessing is anti-Palestinian sentiment that's taking different forms. And anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism are some of these forms." He added at that time that he chose not to participate directly in the student encampments because he did not want to risk the university revoking his student visa. So he was conscious of that. Instead, he just gave speeches and was one of the students that was selected to lead the discussions with the university administrators because they began negotiating with the student activists, and he represented them at Columbia University. A coalition called Apartheid Divest that demanded, among other things, that the university divest from its financial ties to Israel until there was a ceasefire in Gaza. Days after he spoke to CNN, the university missed its deadline to reach an agreement on that divestment. And in response, a bunch of students, as well as people that were not affiliated with the school at all, so these were just like protests that were happening everywhere, entered Columbia's Hamilton Hall and they barricaded themselves inside. Now, he was not one of these students. The university, thus far, no one has proclaimed he barricaded himself into this university. The university then requested police assistance. They removed the protesters, and more than 280 people were arrested from Hamilton Hall. Good. You can't barricade yourself inside a school. That's you breaking the law. He just wasn't one of these students. After those demonstrations, the university moved to suspend him, but then they reversed the decision because after reviewing the evidence, they realized they didn't have any evidence to warrant suspending him. So in his view, the suspension was completely random. Now, I can tell you that, and I would say, until we get answers, this is actually something I agree with. A federal judge has moved to block the effort of the Trump administration to deport him. Judge Jesse Furman ordered a hearing on the case to be held on Wednesday morning in New York City. And so I will be following that tomorrow because I don't understand why he was selected to be deported. People are outraged because despite making a giant splash and announcing his arrest, the politicians in the follow-up discussions seem completely unable to answer specific questions about which law he broke. They're just kind of reminding us like, well, green card holders can be revoked at any time. Okay, yeah, sure. But you don't like his speech? You don't like his opinion? Is that what we're getting at? And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here's Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who was pointedly asked about which law this individual broke. And he's going to say a lot of words, but he's also going to say absolutely nothing. Take a listen.
Speaker, in your estimation, what crime did Mahmoud Khalil commit to warrant his arrest, detention, and the potential revocation of his green card?
Let me tell you something. I went and faced down the angry mob at Columbia at the height of that stuff. When the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters were there. I'm telling you, this is my own observation, not something I read in the newspaper. It was dangerous. I met with Jewish students before we went to campus who were holed away off campus because they were instructed by the administration not to come to class, which they paid for fear of their physical safety. The administrators there refused to take control of that campus. They refused to allow the PD to come, the police department to come in and take control, and it turned into a chaos. The president has since been removed, and now they got the same problem again. Columbia and other universities, they have to keep control of campus. The first responsibility of an administration is ensuring the safety of the students who are paying tuition to be there, for crying out loud. This madness has to stop. We have to get control of it. This guy apparently was a mastermind of those very things, when the gnashing of teeth and the ripping of clothes and the people screaming at me, wanting to rip me limb from limb because I was there talking about moral clarity and how there's a right and a wrong. They were doing that. They disrupted the campus. They were threatening physical violence to their fellow students. If you're on a student visa, I'm going to say this clearly. If you are on a student visa and you're in America and you're an aspiring young terrorist who wants to prey upon your Jewish classmates, you're going home. We're going to arrest your tail, and we're going to send you home where you belong. And this is just getting started. So, look, I appreciate free speech. I used to defend it in courts, but this is far beyond the pale of that. When you are threatening your classmates and spewing anti-Semitism and all this hatred, it's enough. And I think the American people understand that. They're supporting it, and I'm glad we have a president who's strong enough to lay down the law. Thanks a lot.
Lot of words to not tell us what exactly Mahmoud Khalil himself did. He was apparently a mastermind. What? Apparently a mastermind? What are you talking about? You're personalizing. I was there. I saw. I don't doubt any of that. I was there during BLM protests. I saw BLM protesters get violent. It doesn't excuse me to go arrest somebody who wasn't a part of the violent protests. Or are you supposed to be stupid and accept that? You know what we refer to that to? The DC dip and twirl. For those of you who have seen the movie The Campaign with Will Ferrell, when politicians are really good at dipping and twirling and not answering the questions. Here's a clip from that movie.
Cam Brady just gave you the old DC dip and twirl. Just danced around the question.
Mike Johnson just gave you guys the old DC dip and twirl. He just danced around the question. I'm like, okay, what specifically did this kid do? I need to know, because you're talking about green card holders, not people that are just here taking a class. You're saying permanent residents of the United States, we can just revoke your green card at any time for wrongthink. That's what it looks like right now. Again, I am open, as I have been, to being proven wrong if somebody can present evidence of something that he did. Instead of just saying, apparently he was just a mastermind. Just a total mastermind. Everything that was happening was because of him. Do you have evidence of that, Mike Johnson? So Caroline Leavitt, who is the White House press secretary, was predictably questioned about his arrest today as well. And here is what she says his crime was. Take a listen.
Question here on Mahmoud Khalil. Does the administration believe that it needs to charge a green card holder with a crime to be eligible for deportation?
Well, in fact, Secretary Rubio reserves the right to revoke the visa of Mahmoud Khalil, and I'm glad you brought this up. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the Secretary of State has the right to revoke a green card or a visa for individuals who serve or are adversarial to the foreign policy and national security interests of the United States of America. And Mahmoud Khalil was an individual who was given the privilege of coming to this country to study at one of our nation's finest universities and colleges. And he took advantage of that opportunity, of that privilege, by siding with terrorists, Hamas terrorists who have killed innocent men, women, and children. This is an individual who organized group protests that not only disrupted college campus classes and harassed Jewish American students and made them feel unsafe on their own college campus, but also distributed pro-Hamas propaganda, flyers with the logo of Hamas. That is what the behavior and activity that this individual engaged in. And I have those flyers on my desk. They were provided to me by the Department of Homeland Security. I thought about bringing them into this briefing room to share with all of you, but I didn't think it was worth the dignity of this room to bring that pro-Hamas propaganda. But that's what this individual distributed on the campus of Columbia University. And this administration is not going to tolerate individuals having the privilege of studying in our country and then siding with pro-terrorist organizations that have killed Americans. We have a zero tolerance policy for siding with terrorists, period.
Okay, so she is alleging that he distributed materials that are sitting on her desk. Would it not be prudent to just release those flyers? Wouldn't you quiet the noise immediately if what you're saying is true? And there's no reason for us to doubt that what you're saying is true. It's a different answer than everybody else is giving. You're saying he distributed materials that were in support of murder, I'm assuming. And therefore, by the way, I would imagine that he could have been arrested for that. It seems weird that he wasn't arrested by Columbia University, that he didn't get into any trouble with the police at Columbia University, but now he's in trouble with the feds. That seems like a remarkable jump there in the process. Why not release those flyers? Wouldn't that make sense to you? And then adding insult to injury in terms of just trying to give us an excuse, which like I said, I am open to accepting an excuse here. I am. I'm genuinely I was like, go get them when we talked about illegal protesting. I've been on the bad end of that. Then you have people who are just making stuff up that actually isn't true at all. Scott Jennings, and I'm sure this was a mistake. I'm sure somebody gave it to him. He thought it was real and he instantly published it. But he is a CNN opinion contributor who served as the political director for George W. Bush. He went on CNN and said that he was a part of a group that wanted to eradicate Western civilization. He mentioned and you're seeing this going around, that this group, CUAD, C-U-A-D, essentially called for the eradication of Western civilization. And I can tell you guys that that's been debunked now, okay? There is a Twitter account, Village Crazy Lady, who has tweeted debunking the eradication of Western civilization as an element of the group that he was a part of. And she shows that actually that language was pulled regarding a Bangladeshi group. Take a look at this. This is her tweet. Heads up, this is fake. This statement came from a group called Columbia University Bengali Student Association. It was printed in Mondweiss on August 4th, 2024, in a much longer essay expressing solidarity with the student movement in Bangladesh. On August 8th, 2004, Instagram accounts called Jews in Schools and Anti-Semitism Today posted this picture claiming that it was from CUAD's page after an ex-user named Stu Studio posted the Mondoweiss article to his page. This is the evidence of radicalism that all the Zionists are using to attack Mahmoud Khalil today, a screenshot of a fake IG post. And I have seen this going around, and here it is. They're showing this post, but they're pretending that it came from the group that he was a part of. And this is the original post. It had something to do with a Bangladesh group that was on campus. And then she shows in the next slide how that language was actually pulled and verifiably true from Bangladesh. There's like a movement to support students in Bangladesh. And so, again, I'm happy to say that people probably wrongly assume that was true. But why do we have to move to smearing someone? This information should be so easy to garner. You just moved to deport this person. He should have done something so egregious, or just show us the flyer so we can get on board with this. Show me him calling people for death. And don't say that students feeling unsafe is enough of a reason, because this wasn't done. Let's be very clear. This was not done during BLM protests. When Trump was in office, nobody cared about students that were feeling unsafe on campus, which was many. I mean, Michael Knowles was burned in effigy recently. This has been going on forever. Students protesting, getting violent. So I have to say, with the information thus far provided, okay, my opinion right now today, which is subject to change if they come out and they show us more information. But thus far, I entirely disagree with this decision, and I have some questions. How, first and foremost, can you retroactively prosecute a law? Okay, if it was not the law or the position when Trump was in office, and under the Biden regime, he didn't care about this, how can you go back and prosecute someone for a law that didn't exist when he violated it, which is passing out flyers, apparently, flyers that we're not allowed to see? Why wasn't the exact same thing done when students were harassed by BLM? If this is really about protecting students, okay? And some people are saying, oh, well, this is different because Hamas is a designated terrorist group. Okay, well, you guys are saying this is about protecting students, though. So you could have done this exact same thing to protect students under BLM. You didn't do it. Why? Is it because white people shouldn't be protected? White people who live here, by the way? Israelis don't live here. So people protesting Israel has less of an impact on the lives of people than people who are saying that all white people are terrorists and that white people deserve to die, and the signs that we saw during these BLM things, calling for a white genocide, professors that were engaging in that rhetoric, calling for a white genocide. That happened factually in this country. Why didn't we care? To the contrary, when Trump did get involved, when he recognized that conservatives were being chased and violence was happening when we tried to speak on college campuses, he did sign an executive order. But guess what he did? He signed an executive order to increase speech, not to squelch it, to increase it. Here is an old PBS clip following that executive order from 2019, protecting speech due to the way conservatives are being treated on campus because of our perspectives on BLM and other matters. Take a listen.
With a stroke of the pen, President Trump issued an ultimatum to U.S. colleges.
Universities that want taxpayer dollars should promote free speech, not silence free speech.
The executive order signed today requires colleges to certify that their policies support free speech as a condition to receiving federal research grants. It does not affect schools' access to federal financial aid for student tuition. President Trump first proposed the idea to a gathering of conservatives in Washington earlier this month.
We believe in free speech, including online and including on campus.
He brought on stage conservative activist Hayden Williams.
They want our dollars, and we give it to them by the billions. They've got to allow people like Hayden and many other great young people and old people to speak.
In February, Williams was recruiting on UC Berkeley's campus when he got into an altercation with this man, who then punched Williams in the face. That man was arrested and charged with assault, and the university condemned the attack. Williams spoke to the NewsHour while in Washington earlier this month.
Well, I think there's a culture on college campuses that sort of promotes one side over the other. And, conservatives are in the minority on college campuses across the country.
So the question is, why didn't the Trump's Department of Justice move at that moment to begin deporting people who held perspectives that were radically pro-BLM, that were calling for the genocide? I'm just genuinely asking this question for those of us who voted for Trump and support Trump. And here's what I want to say, by the way, to the people who are extraordinarily Zionist, who support Israel and everything that they do, the people who drop the Israeli flag in the chat, thinking that it's going to transform opinion somehow. This is going to backfire. Take it from me. Take this to the bank. This is going to massively backfire. So if your stance in this is, let me defend this action because I have to defend Israel, the exact opposite thing will happen. Do you guys remember this earlier this week when the Gallup poll was released the other day? I can show you this headline. Less than half in the U.S. now sympathetic towards Israelis, okay? And then it says support for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state remains at majority level. And they were reporting this all across that they've never seen such low support for Israel in America ever. And do you want to know why that is? It's not because you can legislate people to support Israel. It's not because you can deport people to support Israel. It's because the opposite thing is more likely to happen, because it looks like politicians are willing to forego American principles when it comes to the topic of Israel. Again, I would feel great about this if you told me that the Department of Justice did this under Trump to protect white Americans at school during BLM riots. And are we supposed to all magically forget, while this is going on, that back in 2020, Bibi Netanyahu was sounding like a gangster, saying that he was going to get speech laws passed in America, and any person that boycotted Israel would themselves suffer. Let's take a listen to Bibi Netanyahu, and this is going to be in Hebrew, but don't worry, I will interpret it for you and then give you some tweets. This is Bibi Netanyahu.
מי שיחרים אותנו מוחרם בעצמו. בשנים האחרונות קידמנו בארצות הברית, ויש כבר ברוב המדינות שם, חוקים שמי שמחרים את ישראל נענש בעצמו. אז זה לא יעזור להם. אנחנו לא מתרגשים מזה, ואנחנו נלחמים בזה.
He is saying we will punish people who boycott Israel. This is a foreign leader of a foreign state saying whoever boycotts Israel will themselves be boycotted. We are getting laws passed. There are laws passed in most states against boycotting us, and you will be punished. How's that for gangster speech? And to back that up, they tweeted it in perfect English, by the way, on the Israel Twitter account. They wrote, this is 2020, Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, whoever boycotts us will be boycotted. The UN Human Rights Council is a biased body that is devoid of influence. Not for nothing, I have already ordered severing ties of it. Guess what, guys? That has now happened here in America. It was also not for nothing that the American administration has taken this step together with us. In recent years, we have promoted laws in most U.S. states which determine that strong action is to be taken against whoever tries to boycott Israel. Fascinating that he can do that he can say that we are supposed to be a party that is America first, and it seems that laws are being dictated according to what this guy wants. And I've been very clear in my stance on him. I think he is a monster. I think he's a gangster, and he's acting like a gangster. And now it seems that politicians are just following his every order. They're just following his order. Doesn't matter why we got rid of it. Bibi Netanyahu wanted us to. You know what we wanted as the American people? We want you guys to focus on the Epstein files and the JFK files that were promised, okay? This isn't where we need you guys to flex your muscle on Mahmoud Khalil, who doesn't have a criminal record here and has a wife that's pregnant for 8 months, like wasn't at the top of my list. I got to be honest. Wasn't even on my list, if I'm being honest. And it's interesting to hear when people recognize that and ask that question of, whoa, what about these Epstein files and JFK files that were promised to be released on day one? Here is how Caroline Levitt answers.
A week ago, Attorney General Bondi said a truckload of Epstein files had been delivered to her office from the SDNY. When can we expect those files to be released to the public? I would defer you to the Department of Justice. I don't have a timeline here. Do you have any update on the JFK files? I don't at this moment. Again, I would defer you to our DNI director, Tulsi Gabbard, and also the Department of Justice. I know that they are working on that diligently as the president requested them to do.
All I'm saying, guys, is I don't like it. I don't like the way it feels. I don't like that it seems increasingly that we are abandoning our values. Again, I had these same values when people were taking extraordinary efforts under the Biden regime's DOJ to go after American citizens for practicing their speech and rightfully assembling to support Donald Trump. And this feels like the exact same thing in both regards, calling people terrorists and telling people not to look at the details. And I'm looking at the details. I'm looking for the details, and I'm happy to correct this report if more comes out. But don't put that on us. Don't say, well, how dare you ask for more questions? Okay, you are the ones who waved this flag. You are the ones who put it all on White House and said, look what we did. We're so proud of this. And now people are saying we didn't answer, because we can't just be kicking out legal permanent residents because they've spoken in ways that we disagree with. If you called for death, murder, the slaughter of children, I'm willing to partner with you. But at this moment, I don't see it. All right, you guys, before I get into some of your comments to see what you guys are thinking, maybe, Skylar, we should put up a poll while I am getting through these ads, a poll of whether or not the Department of Justice was justified against Khalil. If you want to get that poll going on YouTube, I will read the results by the time I get through these ads and get through your questions. But first, I want to tell you about 7 Weeks Coffee, because it is America's pro-life coffee company that's on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, one cup of coffee at a time. They are called 7 Weeks Coffee because at 7 weeks, a baby is the size of a coffee bean, and it's the same time a heartbeat is clearly detected on an ultrasound. That's also why they donate 10% of every sale to support pregnancy care centers across the country. They have raised over $800,000 for these centers, and they have saved thousands of lives. Now, let me tell you about the coffee, because I'm very picky about what I put into my body. It's mold-free, pesticide-free, shade-grown, low acid, and it's organically farmed, so it checks all the boxes. And right now, when you subscribe to 7 Weeks Coffee, you'll receive a free limited edition Lent tote designed by a daily reminder to pray, fast, and drink 7 Weeks Coffee during this Lenten season. So go to 7weekscoffee.com and save 15% forever when you subscribe. Plus, exclusively for my listeners, if you use code Candace, you'll get an extra 10% off your first order. That's a 25% total savings on your first order, plus your free gift. So visit 7weekscoffee.com and use promo code Candace. Also, I don't know your exact situation, but if you're like thousands of homeowners American Financing talks to every month, and you are perhaps struggling to keep up, barely making ends meet, drowning in high interest debt, and it is, of course, not your fault, life just got more expensive. Inflation hit a lot of people very hard. So if you're still carrying around credit card balances with 20% plus interest rates while your mortgage sits untouched, you are ignoring the one thing that could turn it all around for you in your home. And this is where American Financing can help. Would you trade 10 minutes of your time for a shot at saving an average of $800 every single month? Because that is exactly what homeowners are doing when they call American Financing. A simple, no obligation call could change everything. They have a team of salary-based mortgage consultants, so there isn't any incentive to put you into a loan that does not make any sense. And there are no upfront fees to find out how much you could be saving. So do not wait. Talk to American Financing today and start feeling that relief. Call 800-795-1210. Again, that number is 800-795-1210. Or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. Again, that's americanfinancing.net/Owens. Okay, we are going to get to this poll. Okay, what was the question we asked? We're at 67% no, but I don't know exactly what Skylar asked. What did we ask? Whether or not Trump was correct, right? So it's a yes or no question. Was Trump correct? Was the Trump administration correct to move on Mahmoud Khalil? Right now, we are at 66% no, 34% yes. So, and that is out of just 2,300 votes. We're going to still allow that to climb. By the way, guys, I'm really proud of this. A year ago, in March, I was fired, and it was a huge headline all across the world. And my family went through a lot, and it just felt really good to know that fast forward a year, this was the Wall Street Journal today doing an article called Beyond the Manosphere, a new wave of popular political podcasts ascends. And buried in this article, actually not buried, it's actually prominently featured in this article, is the fact that we have the #3 podcast in America. It speaks about how basically people are turning to independent media. It mentions me as a running political show. Oh no, that's actually Candace Owens' show, but I'll go to the next page where it talks about me. It says, Owens, a former political talk show host at the Daily Wire, launched Candace in June as part of her own independent media company. She said the format allows her to take more risks without corporate checks and balances. Downloads and views of Candace across platforms were nearly 40 million over the past month, according to Podscribe, notching her at #3 behind Midas Touch and Rogan. So, and it speaks about these investigative series that we've been doing and how people are appreciating it. So I wanted to share that with you because that feels like it's a win for us. And for those of you that listen to the show every day, I'm so grateful to you. I know I tell you that way too much, but I'm just going to keep saying it until you're sick of me saying how grateful I am. But it is amazing to know that this is 1 year later. And it's also a reminder to anyone listening to this podcast and you're going through like a moment in life and you're going through like a why moment, like why, you almost are like, why would God allow this to happen to me? Why would God allow this injustice to happen to me? And a bunch of people are betting against you, like to remember that sometimes things, when you move through a season, you just don't see the bigger picture, and to just trust it, trust the process, trust that maybe it's God just getting you out of a situation and preparing you for something bigger. And I know that someone out there needed to hear that today. Maybe someone who literally got fired today needed to hear that. And so just keep on keeping on and pray and be grateful, even if you can't see the big picture. All right, let's read some of your comments. First, let me just check what we are at now. Yeah, we are still sitting at 66% on that poll of people who believe that the Department of Justice was not justified. 66% of you think that what Trump did was wrong, and 34% of you believe that what Trump did was the correct thing to do. Okay, a couple of questions. Norma writes, wow, I agree 100%. No forgiveness. This is regarding Blake Lively until the person at least asks for it. Also, you don't need to do drugs. Accept Jesus and God and read the Bible. And also, congratulations on the baby. And I hope God continues to bless you and your family. Thank you so much, Norma. That is so kind. Jaria Khan writes, Trump and his admin are absolutely losing their base by turning on Massey. This is correct. He also today fired a shot at Thomas Massey, asking for him to be primaried. He is very well liked. He's very well liked by me as well. Jaria continues, his entire campaign has been focused on working for a foreign nation, and I'm fed up. Nail in coffin for me. America deserves better. Massey 2028. For those of you that don't follow the intricacies of American Congressman, Massey is one of maybe 3 congressmen who does not bend to AIPAC, the American Israel PAC. They have long been trying to get him out of office. And today Trump fired a shot saying that someone should primary him and that they would have his support. And it did not play well in MAGA world. People who voted for Trump love Trump. I love Thomas Massey, and I think he's just got this wrong, and I won't be supporting that endeavor to primary Massey. And so people are thinking even that is another symptom of him having taken $100 million from Miriam Adelson in the election process. It's a big number, and so who's his master is what people are asking. And so it's unfortunate to hear people saying that it's a nail in the coffin for them. And hopefully Trump turns this around. Who knows? Tara writes, thank you, Candace, for your consistency on this. They have silenced Alex Jones. They are silencing anyone who criticizes. Dina writes, went through all my teenage years without being a groupie of anyone. Now I'm 45, living in Germany. I become a groupie of Candace. You're so sweet. Please add PayPal so I can join Club Candace. I didn't know we didn't have that. Skylar, please note that. We should add PayPal. I will tell my husband. But Skylar has left me a note here saying that the website works with any credit card, and we will indeed look into PayPal. Stephanie writes, Blake and Ryan brought this on themselves. I do not feel even a little bit bad for her. You reap what you sow. That's correct. And now it is indeed a season of harvest for her. And again, if she apologizes, I will have a totally different perspective. But I'm going to need that apology first for my cousin. Maud writes, Candace, can you ask President Trump to release the Tex Watson tapes from the LA prosecutor's office to Tom O'Neill, writer of Chaos? Tom was looking for them for his book. Oh, speaking of chaos, you guys, tonight we have the book club as we continue this book, which is so beat up because I have just gone through it way too many times. The next, I think, 5 chapters we're doing tonight, that is at 6 p.m. Eastern, and the live chat is working, so I'm so excited. So excited. This book is amazing. As I said, everyone should read it. I didn't know about that. Tex Watson was one of the, the main guys that executed that murder. So, yeah, allegedly, I say now, having read that book, who knows what the heck went down that night. But I gotta say, regarding asking Trump to release the Tex Watson tapes, I just need those Epstein files and JFK files first, please. And JFK is mentioned in this book. There's still a connection. The 60s was a wild time. The CIA was just doing whatever. Lastly, Abigail Bower writes, Democrat here who found you recently and now questioned a lot of my own social engineering and views. Please have Ian Carroll on. You two would be great. That's a great idea. I'm going to reach out to Ian Carroll and get him on, because I feel like that was just kind of providence that he was on Joe Rogan. I was on Theo Vaughn. We both had similar discussions, and yeah, he's from the left, I'm from the right, but I love the work that he's doing, because the work that he is doing, and I hope the work that you guys see that I'm doing, is just to challenge people to think outside of the box. Stop thinking of yourself as a Republican or a Democrat or left versus right, but just try to be ideologically consistent. See what your values are, and don't believe the mainstream media. If anything, that is something that I am saying. It is amazing how much they can make you hate somebody and make you believe in a version of events and make you acquiesce to your freedoms being squeezed. And it's just going to take critical thinkers to kind of be able to break that mold. All right, guys, again, we have book club tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. Also, there will be a new Shot in the Dark tomorrow that is released. This time it will be on the flu shot. So if you are subscribed to that, great. If not, all you have to do to join all of these things is head to CandaceOwens.com. And we will see you guys there, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.